verses, a couple of minutes. Those 1970s theologians, Pink Floyd once said, everything under the sun is in tune, but the sun is eclipsed by the moon. I don't normally do this, as y'all well know. I'm not an ambulance chaser. You know what an ambulance chaser is, right? Somebody that chases the ambulance in hopes of a payday, looking for something. I don't usually do ripped from the headlines sermons. Something kind of tacky about it. So I kind of feel dirty. However, so many people are thinking about what's happening tomorrow. And it's not just that it's happening. It's that so much of the, at least online discourse, has taken a spiritual turn. I almost feel like I would not be doing my job as a pastor if I didn't say something about it. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I put a Facebook post out, which kind of gave you my thoughts. But not everybody's on Facebook, and Facebook isn't the place to really hash out anything with great theological depth either. So, I want to speak for a few minutes on the solar eclipse and what my thoughts are. And more importantly, what I think, I'm going to emphasize that, what I think God's thoughts are. Because people are freaking out. They are. Maybe you're not freaking out. Maybe nobody in this church is freaking out. But boy, people in this world are losing it. And I have seen enough around the internet to know that there may be people in this church that are wondering, I wonder what this is all about. Why are people freaking out? Well, one reason is solar eclipses are kind of rare. I saw somebody wrote that it's once in a lifetime. That's not true. It's not true. They happen on average once every 18 months. That's a little bit more than your birthday. And you wouldn't say that your birthdays are rare, right? I mean, if you had a birthday every 18 months, would you call that rare? Probably not. But still, once every 18 months isn't like it happens every day, so people are drawn to it. Not only that, but we're drawn to strange sights and sounds, especially when they're in the sky. I remember the last time the United States experienced a total solar eclipse was 2017. That was before we had come here, but in an act of God, or a stroke of good luck, even though we were living in Texas, I happened to be here in South Carolina at the time. I was at Fort Jackson, which is only a 13-day window, 14 days including travel. And I happened to be here, I think it was in August that year, 2017. It was amazing. It was cloudy that day. I already looked it up. Tomorrow's not supposed to be cloudy. It should be nice. And they're strange. And so we're drawn to it. And it seems to communicate something to us about something. We're not quite sure. Coupled with the earthquakes that have been happening, and we have been experiencing earthquakes, have we not? Maybe not here in South Carolina, but they have been in the world. The Bible describes a period of darkness before the end, and so that makes people nervous. If you're paying attention online, you know that Israel is also preparing red heifers, which may or may not have something to do with the construction of a third temple in Jerusalem. And according to our theology, the way I can't speak for everybody here, but the way most of us believe, a reconstructed temple is something that will happen at some point, so that the Antichrist can walk in and declare himself God. By the way, that's a clue that if a temple starts to be reconstructed, you should not applaud that. That's a terrible thing. Jesus is the sacrifice. We don't need another temple. Amen? And there are seemingly strange coincidences. The solar eclipse last time, and this one formed a Hebrew letter, which is supposed to represent the end, apparently. This eclipse that we're going to experience tomorrow is passing through places called Nineveh, which is supposed to be important. It's a sign of the prophet Jonah. Which, by the way, the sign of the prophet Jonah had nothing to do with an eclipse. The sign of the prophet Jonah was what? Jesus said, "No sign will be given this generation except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as," come on, finish it. "As Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights, even so the Son of Man will be in the ground for 3 days and 3 nights." That's the sign of the prophet Jonah, not an eclipse. The Mississippi River is supposed to reflect the Nile River of Egypt. I'm telling you, there's all kinds of strange things. And there's a deep, deep rabbit hole. Alice would be proud. There's talk of economic collapse and banking failures. That may happen regardless of what happens tomorrow, right? Freakish degenerates in our halls of government, appointed by our leaders. Wars and rumors of war all over the world. The utter disintegration of the family. All of these are great concerns. But they must never eclipse our faith. They must never, no matter what is happening in your life, in the world, your faith must be bright enough and brighter than anything that could possibly eclipse it, including all these terrible things. Now, the world falls down around us. We will trust in God. Sometimes, don't you get this feeling, sometimes you feel like Joshua standing up in front of a bunch of idol worshippers saying, "Y'all do what you're going to do, but as for me and my house, doggone it, we're going to serve the Lord." Well, the world is going crazy over this thing, and I feel like saying, guys, it doesn't matter what is happening. God is in control. Are these things signs from God? And what should be our controlling thoughts? I just want to briefly, by the way, this is not going to be a deep dive on everything, all the conspiracies, let's not call them conspiracies, theories. Because if they turn out to be true, they're not conspiracies, right? Could Jesus come tomorrow?
Yes.
Could there be tidal waves tomorrow? Yes. Could all these things? All of it could happen. And guess what? If the absolute worst case scenario happens, God's still good. And He's still in control. What I want to do today is talk about what our attitude should be concerning not just tomorrow, but predicting things in general. And I want to start by talking about our track record as human beings when it comes to predicting the end. Let me tell you, it's bad. It's real bad. It's worse than my luck. And Morgans have a saying, if we didn't have bad luck, we'd have no luck at all. I'll make a confession. This is not something I'm proud of necessarily, but I have been to a casino and gambled one time. Before you were born. Before you were born. Before I was married, actually. I was with a friend in Detroit, or near Detroit, Michigan. He said, "Let's go to Canada." This might have been before the 9/11 attacks. I think it was, when it was a lot easier just to go and come without passports and all that. There's a town across the river from Detroit called Windsor, Ontario. And I said, well, it's not really gambling if you plan to lose it. So I took out $20. And I said, I'm just going to have fun with $20. If it turns into something, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Whatever. I'll only lose $20. I took $20 in. I started playing slots. And wouldn't you know it, I won something. I couldn't believe it. I was like, well, my luck's starting to turn. And I know nothing about cards or gambling or anything, so I said, what's something simple I can do, you know? And I saw the wheel doing this. I thought, red and black. Well, that seems simple enough. I'll choose red and black. So I said, well, I'm going to scout the territory, you know. I'm going to do some homework first, so I'll watch for a couple minutes. Black. Next spin. Black. Next spin. Black. Next spin. Black. Now, I don't know about you. I just kind of felt like the odds were starting to favor red at some point, right? So I took $10. Red. You know what happened. Black. So I said, well, that's 5 times in a row. It's black. Got to hit red. So I took half of my remaining money, $5. Red. Black. Well, if 7 isn't my lucky number, I guess I don't have one. I took my last $5, put it on red, and you know how the story ended. Black. And I left, and I said, I don't even want to know when it hits red, because I'll just be mad if it's number 8. And it probably was, knowing my luck. Guys, my luck is still better than the people who have predicted the end of the world. Because it's been happening for a very long time. And has it come yet? It has not. We've had great Christians, and I mean that with all sincerity, great Christians predict the end of the world all the way back in 500 A.D. Guys, that's been a minute. It's been 1,500 years. Guys like Irenaeus, who was a great Christian of the time, and Hippolytus predicted the end of the world. By the way, they were not basing it on a solar eclipse. They were basing their prediction on the dimensions of Noah's Ark. I have no idea how to figure that one out. But they said it's got to be the dimensions of Noah's Ark. And Jesus said, not in your life, not this year. John Wesley, a great hero to me, founder of the Methodist denomination, believed that Jesus was going to come back in 1836. Jesus doesn't have to listen to John Wesley either. Great Christians. There have been weird Christians. No offense, maybe I'm a weird Christian, but Hal Lindsey, anybody remember Hal Lindsey? He wrote a book in 1987 called 88 Reasons Why the Rapture Will Be in 1988. He didn't come back. And then he said, well, he's kind of like me hitting red. He wrote another book the next year called, you're going to be blown away by the original title, 89 Reasons the Rapture Will Be in 1989. And I bet one of them was he didn't come in 1988. Great Christians, weird Christians. There have been outright heretics. In fact, some denominations, if you want to call them that, I would call them false religions, are built around the idea that Jesus has not come back. William Miller, who established a sect called the Millerites, who became the Seventh-day Adventists. You ever heard of them? He said Jesus is coming back in 1844. It didn't happen. Charles Russell, founder of the Watchtower Society, which you know as Jehovah's Witnesses, said Jesus is coming back in 1874. Didn't happen. Joseph Smith, who founded the Latter-day Saints, which you know as Mormons, said he was coming back in 1891. Didn't happen. Sun Myung Moon, who founded a sect called the Moonies, they were very popular in the 70s and 80s, said he was coming sometime between 1917 and 1930. He didn't. And Frank Cherry, who founded the Black Hebrew Israelites, said he was coming back in the year 2000. And there were a lot of people predicting the end of the world in 2000, and it didn't happen, did it? There's also New Agers who have nothing to do with Christianity. Gene Dixon, a famous psychic, said he was coming back in 2020. He didn't come back. There have been all kinds of predictions. Predictions of his bodily return. Predictions of a reincarnated Jesus. Predictions of the spiritual return of Jesus. The psychic return of Jesus. The mystical return of Jesus. the Antichrist's appearance, the beginning of the millennium, the spiritual final judgment, and the end of the world. There have been, you name a type of prediction, and it's been offered, and none of it has happened. That's at least, I counted them, 45 times that people have gone on record, not counting all the crackpots, predicting Christ's return or the end, and they're batting 0. 0. It's like people who have never won a scratch-off thinking, this is the time I'm going to hit the mega ball. It's unlikely. We have a terrible, terrible track record when it comes to predicting the end. And I say all of that just to say Jesus might come back tomorrow. The Antichrist might reveal himself tomorrow. The end might come tomorrow, but it's unlikely. Very unlikely, I would say, depending on that track record. Amen? Now you might respond, well, Jesus is going to come back sometime, and that's true. That's something we can all agree on. That doesn't mean he's coming back tomorrow. And that doesn't mean that the eclipse has anything to do with Jesus' return or the end. God is in complete control, and you can trust him. That is what I want you to leave here believing today. God is in complete control, and you can trust him. Did you know that God doesn't want you to predict the future? He doesn't. I want you to think about this just for a second. We think of the virgin birth as being so obvious, don't we? Isaiah 7:14. The virgin shall be with child and conceive a son. Conceive and bear a son. And they shall call his name Emmanuel. We think, oh, this is so obvious looking back at it. And it is obvious looking back at it from our vantage point. But how many first century Jews were expecting a virgin birth? 0. Not one got it right. The suffering of the Messiah seems so obvious to us. We looked at Isaiah chapter 53 about a month and a half ago. He himself bore our sicknesses. He carried our pains. We regard him stricken, struck down by God, and afflicted. He was pierced for our transgressions, bruised for our iniquities. The punishment of our peace was upon him, and we are healed by his wounds. It seems so obvious that applies to Jesus, but how many of the disciples on the night he was betrayed expected Jesus to suffer? Every one of them ran away because they didn't understand. The resurrection of Jesus, that seems like a bright blinking light now. Should have been obvious. But we talked about this last week. Those two dudes walking to Emmaus had no clue. And even though they talked to women who told them, we've seen him alive, they still didn't believe it. Why not? It's because trying to use prophecy and put it together like a puzzle, that's not the purpose of prophecy. When we treat the book of Ezekiel, we looked at the book of Ezekiel in Sunday school this morning. When we take that book and Zechariah and Isaiah and Revelation and Matthew chapter 24, and we try to figure out the puzzle. You know when you get a puzzle, you dump all the pieces out, and then you set the box stuff up, right? All right, let me figure this thing out. All right, that looks like the edge. That looks like that's the corners of them. Let me get going. Let me do the outside first, and then I can start filling in the pieces. That's how you put a puzzle together. That is not how you figure out prophetic events. In fact, you might think this is silly of me as a pastor in a church. I don't think it's our job to figure out prophetic events. If they couldn't do it in the first century, what makes you or I think we can do it today? Yes. There's one thing I know. God is in control. There's one thing I know. Jesus is coming back. The Lord says his coming cannot be predicted. Not that it will not be predicted, it cannot be predicted. He predicts this in the Old Testament. Blow the trumpet in Zion, Joel chapter 2, verses 1 and 2. Sound the alarm on my holy mountain. Let all the residents of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord is coming. In fact, it is near. A day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and total darkness, like the dawn spreading over the mountains. A great and strong people appear, such as never existed in ages past, and never will again in all the ages to come. Matthew 24:36, Jesus says concerning that day and that hour, no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, except the Father alone. Later, in chapter 25 and verse 13, he says, be alert. Stay awake. Because you don't know either the day or the hour. It almost seems like Jesus is saying, you don't know what day I'm coming, but you know what day I'm not coming, April the 8th, 2024. Because so many people are saying it is. I wouldn't take that to the bank. He could come wherever he likes. 1 Thessalonians, where you are, chapter 5. Paul says in verse 1, concerning the times and the seasons, brothers, you have no need to have anything written to you, for you yourselves are fully aware that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. Now there's scholarly debate on whether the day of the Lord is rapture, whether it's his second coming, whether it's the end of the world. I don't know. What I do know is that thieves come when you're not expecting it. That's kind of what they do. They don't announce they're coming, do they? Hey guys, just to let you know, about 30 minutes I'm going to be breaking your door down. That's not how it works. By definition, they come when you're asleep. Oh, that's why Jesus said stay awake. Right? He's not saying don't go to sleep. Even Jesus himself took naps and went to sleep at night. What he's saying is, spiritually, don't be like the world. Understand that I am going to return. And that it has nothing to do with your time frame and your predictions. I will come when I'm going to come. Not when you think I'm going to come. But Pastor, what about verse 4? Let's read verses 3 and 4. While people are saying, there is peace and security, then sudden destruction will come upon them, as labor pains come upon a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. Verse 4 is the key one. But you are not in darkness, brothers, for that day to surprise you like a thief. See there? Isn't that proof that Christians can know when he will come? It's not. It says it shouldn't surprise you. It doesn't say you know when it's going to happen. That's why I won't be surprised if Jesus comes this afternoon. I won't be surprised if he comes tomorrow. I won't be surprised if he comes next week or next month or next year. Because God's in control. And I don't worry about things above my pay grade, like the return of the Lord. Heaven's sake. If there's anything above our pay grade, it's that. Jesus told the disciples in Luke chapter 17, verses 22 to 30, this strikes at the heart of what it means that we are not, what does he say in 1 Thessalonians? That we are not to be surprised like the world is. Listen to Jesus' description of the world. He says, the days are coming when you will long to see one of the days of the Son of Man, but you won't see it. They will say to you, see there, see here. Don't follow or run after them. Guys, that is the internet. That's the internet. Look at this. Look at this. That's the internet. Don't follow those people. They don't know what they're talking about. How do I know that? Because the return of Christ, he says, is going to be obvious. Verse 24, as the lightning flashes from horizon to horizon and lights up the sky, so the Son of Man will be in his day. Guys, when it's dark outside and lightning flashes, you know it. And not just you. It's not like God revealed to you the lightning. Nobody else. Everybody sees it. It's going to be obvious. Verse 25, first it is necessary that he suffer many things and be rejected by this generation. What is the world going to be like? Jesus? Just as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be in the days of the Son of Man. People went on eating, drinking, marrying, being given in marriage until the day Noah boarded the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. The point there is that destruction was imminent. Their personal destruction was imminent, but they weren't prepared for the Lord at all. By the way, anytime someone dies, this is the end that they meet, yes? We have this phrase, be prepared to meet your maker. Well, people are meeting their maker today. Right this minute, people are dying, taking their last breath. So whether the world ends on April 8th is not important to them. Their world has already ended, and they have gone to meet their maker. How did they live up until that moment? Were they doing this? Eating, drinking, marrying, and given in marriage, la-di-da-di, everybody. Every day is just like the last. I'm just living my life, living my truth, doing my thing. That's if people used slang back then, Jesus would have said they were doing their thing. Until the flood came, it was too late. And so that we don't miss the point, he extends the illustration. Verse 28, it will be the same as it was in the days of Lot. People went on eating, drinking, buying, selling, planting, building. Whatever it is you do, whatever it is I do, just doing it day after day. Without any thought for God, for his feelings on sin, for his views on your sanctification. The people of Sodom were this close to meeting their maker, and they didn't know it until it was too late. That is the difference between you and the world. The world pays no mind to God. There's none. They are doing their thing. Christians, on the other hand, live every day with the knowledge there is a God that is above me. He has say over me, over my life, over the music I listen to, over the way I spend my money, over the way I make my money, over the way I treat people, over whether I forgive people, over my anxiety. He is Lord of everything, or he's Lord of nothing. That is the way a Christian perceives God and life. And that sets you apart from the world, who pays no attention to God whatsoever. And then a day will come, whether it is through a car accident, or a heart attack, or just, old age, they will go to meet their maker. And this is how they lived. Buying, selling, YouTube, Instagram, TV, sports, whatever. Doing their thing. That's what Jesus meant to the Apostle Paul when he said, the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. They're not expecting it. They're asleep. But you're awake. You know that he's coming. What that means is you should not live like the world. You should live differently. One of the ways that we live differently is by not trying to predict the end. Instead, have faith in God. Remember, it's above our pay grade. We cannot. So I would ask you to consider. This is the call to action. Are you ready to meet your Maker? Seriously consider it. The Lord could return tomorrow. He could also return in 5 seconds. And when he does, it's too late. If you aren't ready for the Lord's return, you must stop acting like the people in Noah's day and instead pound on the door of the ark and beg him to let you in. Jesus is the ark. And the only way to get in is by grace through faith. To cast yourself on his mercy and say, Lord, I have lived for myself. I have been doing my thing. And I need to stop. Could tomorrow be special? It could. In which case, you must prepare to meet your Maker today. However, if you are ready, if you're a child of God, I'd like to encourage you with a thought. We have something in common with the eclipse. And that is, we can point people to God. Psalm chapter 19 and verse 1 says this. You know it. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. It proclaims his handiwork. I don't know if there's any kind of end time significance to tomorrow, but tomorrow is special, and I bought the glasses. We're not in the path of totality, I know, but still we get 80% coverage. That's what I saw. I plan on watching it. I don't know when the next one comes. It might be a long time. I want to see the glory of my Maker in the heavens. And I won't be scared. I'll be praising him as I look at it. The heavens, God did that. Did you know that the only reason we even can see a solar eclipse is because the sun is exactly 400 times larger than the moon, and the sun is exactly 400 times further away than the moon? Did you know that? Exactly. The heavens declare the glory of random chance and chaos. Right? No. The heavens declare the glory of God. God made the sun 400 times larger than the moon, and he placed it 400 times further away than the moon, so that on special occasions like this, we can see them intersect and give praise to him. That is the heavens proclaiming the work of his hands. And do you know what you and I can do? Proclaim the work of his hands. Let us pray. Father in heaven, we are grateful